Hey, what's up guys? Matt Laidlaw here, Laidlaw's Harley-Davidson. Here today to bring you a test ride, and really the first time I've ever ridden the new Sportster XL1200CX. This is the new Roadster. So this is the bike that really came as a surprise to a lot of people. We heard about it one week, and the very next week it was showing up at dealerships. And before even riding it, what I do know about this bike is this is kind of a rider's bike where, you know, if you're a beginner rider, you've never ridden motorcycles before, a lot of times these guys coming into dealerships will get a Sportster because it's the smallest frame and the least expensive bike. What I do know about this bike is that it has inverted forks, it has a lot taller suspension than your typical Sportster, has bigger wheels. I believe it's an 18-inch rear wheel, 18 or 19-inch front wheel. And so it's also kind of your cafe racer style bike where you've got a lower handlebar. The fuel tank is actually taller, it appears, than the handlebars. And you've got kind of a bobbed fender there. And it kind of resembles a cafe racer style motorcycle. So inverted forks here. This bike is part of the demo fleet. So we have the Harley-Davidson factory demo fleet here this weekend. So this is not a bike we sell off the showroom floor. I had a Softail Slim video where I scraped the floorboards and everyone was like, well, do I get money off now that you scraped the floorboards? No, it wasn't a bike that we sell, it's just a demo bike. So it's got this bobbed fender back here. A lot of guys that touch down on the ground very easily on normal Sportsters that are maybe a little bit shorter, a shorter inseam, actually can't even touch the ground completely on this bike because it is a lot taller. You got a lot taller rear suspension. This is Harley-Davidson's premium ride shock. Has the gas emulsion chamber in there. You got your inverted forks. So I'm going to test this thing out. It's a 1200cc bike, 5-speed transmission, fuel injection. Looks like it's got passenger pegs there, passenger seat. This looks like a 30-minute seat for a passenger. You've got absolutely hardly any rise on this riser here. So the tank is visibly above the riser on this bike, which is very uncommon for a Sportster. The motor, you've got a combination of this gunmetal dull gray and the wrinkled black finish. These heat shields look like the same ones that come on the new 48. So we're going to test it out, see how it goes. One thing I did fail to mention is this bike has dual disc front brakes, which no other Sportster has a dual disc front brake right now. So again, one more feature to add to the fact that this is a very performance oriented Sportster, the most performance oriented Sportster of any available Sportster right now. Kind of has some resembling traits of the old 1200Rs for those of you who remember that bike. So first of all, let me go over the display you have right there. So the tach is your RPM, which is kind of the main focal point, which I guess reinforces the fact that this is more of a performance oriented bike because you have your RPMs right there, so you kind of know your shift point a little bit better and all that stuff. Digitally you have your miles per hour, and you also have a gear readout, what gear you're in on the right as well. So it was pretty functional. I felt like I always could just look down at a glance really quick. So that top left button I was just pressing, that's right above the horn, that is your toggle switch that acts just like the other Sportsters in recent years, and that toggles between, you have a trip A and a trip B, you have your clock, and you also have a digital RPMs and gear you're in as well. So a couple more things. You got the 3.3 gallon gas tank on this. It's the same shape and capacity as the Iron 883. The seat is brand new for this bike. Again, it's kind of a cafe racer styled seat. Really cool. I think it looks really good. It's got a good look to it. You got mid-mounted controls on this bike. So again, performance oriented. Anytime you have anything other than a mid-mounted control, you take away a little bit of your ability to really put the bike where you want and control the bike. I will say, because of my height, the controls and the whole chassis really wasn't very conducive to a really good controlled riding experience for me. My knees were way too high. I was looking like a grasshopper on the bike, and my knees were getting in the way of the handlebars when I was turning, and it wasn't allowing me to turn and really make the bike perform and handle the way that it's capable of. You'll notice on a lot of the turns on this video, I'm really not going that fast. I just wasn't that comfortable and confident with my body position on the bike to really put the bike into the turn the way it's designed to do. That being said, if I had a little bit more time on the bike, I feel like I could get used to the bike and shave some seconds off my lap time if I was on a track or something like that. But it was a fun, nimble bike, really fun to ride, real responsive when I went to put it into a turn. The bike definitely had plenty of giddy up, from the stop. I felt like I could really crank it, and again, one of the things that's great about a Harley-Davidson is they have a lot of torque, and you could definitely feel the torque in this bike. Now, those of you watching this video that are going to compare this to like a sport bike, like an R1, like a CBR, or something like that, they don't compare. And a sport bike is going to out-accelerate any Harley-Davidson any day. So, it's a different type of feel. The thing that's different about a Harley-Davidson and the power and the way that the engineering of the motor works is you've got a lot heavier bike than your typical sports bike. This particular bike weighs about 600 pounds, and you have access to that torque at lower RPM ranges. On a sport bike, you have to wind the motor out, to 6, 7, 8, 9,000 RPMs before you even begin to access the power of a sport bike. But the power on a Harley-Davidson, certainly this bike, is more of a functional power that you can access immediately right out of the gate, right out of the stop. If you have to slow down for a second due to another car or something like that, you can slow down, roll the throttle right back on, and access that power again without having to always drop a gear or whatever else. So I'm up on the freeway now. This is the 10 freeway that runs through Los Angeles. I'm about 20 minutes east of downtown LA right now. But this was the big test that I wanted to give this bike, because this bike has really tall suspension, like I think I mentioned before. And one of the biggest complaints that a lot of Sportster owners have after owning the bike for a long time is when they get up on the road and start doing high speeds for a long duration, the ride comfort just is not that great. And one of the big motivators that people have for buying a Harley-Davidson is their extremely comfortable motorcycles. So I will say that this bike passed that test with flying colors. Right now I'm doing about 80 miles an hour, and I have to say I was very comfortable. Now, it's not like I was on my big touring bike, my big 800-pound Street Glide, but for a Sportster, for this small of a bike, and certainly this chassis, this is by far the most comfortable Sportster I've ever been on. at, you know, a high speed like 80 miles an hour I'm doing right now. So again, this is a great all-around rider's bike. Really nice suspension, front and rear. It's got the 1200cc motor. It's a real peppy motor. Handles really good. But yeah, I can't say enough good things about the suspension of this bike. Now I will say, if you're looking for, you know, comfort as your primary motivator by a Harley-Davidson, well, this wouldn't be your number one choice. When you get a heavier chassis, you're innately just going to increase your ride comfort. So I will say though, another complaint that Sportster owners have after they start to venture out and ride the bike more, longer distances, is these bikes only have a 5-speed transmission. Well, I should probably confirm this before I made this video, but I didn't. But it feels like the gearing in this bike is tuned or geared higher. So what I mean by that is it's a taller gear ratio. So I was doing about 80 miles an hour in 5th gear at only about 3,000 RPMs. At one point on the freeway, I was doing about 60 in 5th gear, and I found myself downshifting into 4th gear. So the bike at 80 miles an hour in the 3,000 RPMs had plenty of power to still go in this thing, and you know, I never felt like I peaked at all. One thing I will say on the Iron 883s, which are the most popular Sportster right now, because they have a low price point and they look really good. One of their biggest weaknesses is when you get up at higher speeds on the freeway, when you go to roll on the throttle to pass someone or whatever else, they struggle to continue to pull real hard. They've got plenty of low-end torque, you know, out on surface streets, but once you really get up to high speed, that's where the 883 motor struggles. Now this bike here on the Roadster, I didn't feel like there was that struggle at all. I felt like this thing still had plenty to give at 80 miles an hour. So yeah, I was impressed with that. It's a good high-speed freeway bike for a Sportster. This model comes in 4 different colors. The bike I'm riding is called Velocity Red. There's a 2-tone, billet silver, and vivid black. And then there's 2 solid colors above and beyond the red. They have denim black, and then they have just your classic vivid black that comes on every bike. Here's a little extra bonus for all you in-and-out lovers out there. Over my left shoulder here coming up is the first in-and-out ever built. It's actually a replica now built in the location of the first in-and-out ever. Baldwin Park, where this video is taking place, is the headquarters. Now on the other side of the freeway you got a regular in-and-out restaurant. Alright guys, I wanted to take a second and give some post-ride remarks here. So I was super impressed with the bike. For those of you who just want kind of a quick synopsis on whether or not to buy this bike is an advanced Sportster. So if you're someone that wants a Sportster chassis, maybe you want a quick agile bike, maybe you want a small bike, maybe you want a bike that has a lower price point, and you're a good rider, you've been riding for a while, you can appreciate things like tight cornering with the inverted front end, a really good ride. The ride quality on this bike was extremely good. I was very impressed with the rear shocks. I'm about 215 pounds and this bike handled my weight really well. The other thing, and I probably should confirm this, but I feel like this bike has a taller gearing ratio on it, because I found myself on the freeway downshifting from 5th into 4th when I was doing about 60 miles an hour. So I took it up to about 3,000 RPMs in 5th gear. This is a 5-speed, by the way. I took it up to 3,000 RPMs in 5th gear and I was doing 80 miles an hour. My touring bike, my Street Glide, that's the equivalent of 6th gear on my Street Glide. So when I'm in 6th on my touring bike, I'm doing 3,000 RPMs, I'm doing about 80 miles an hour. So this was doing that in 5th gear. So this is definitely a bike that if you've been riding for a while, maybe you've been riding cafe racers like Triumphs, or maybe like MotoGP bikes, and you want to convert into the Harley world and have a good performing motorcycle. You're an experienced rider, but you want something, you don't want a big, real heavy touring bike, heavy cruiser. This is the bike for you. If you're a brand new rider just getting into it, you can ride the bike. I will say this is a very tall bike, and if you're 5'5" or 5'6", you're probably not gonna be able to touch very good on this bike. I'm 6'6", I could touch very easily. For me personally, if I was gonna buy this bike for myself, I would have to make some adjustments. One thing that I noticed for me, I'm 6'6". When I was turning, I had to make sure that my knees were out of the way because the handlebars were hitting my knees. With the forward control, or excuse me, the bike has mid controls. With these mid controls, my knees were just really tall and way too high, especially for the low bars that are on this bike. And so I found myself having to mentally prepare myself for a turn and move my knee out of the way before I initiated a turn, or else I would hit my knees with the handlebars. But overall, I was really impressed with the bike. It's a really good get out, go fast, ride hard bike. It handles the turns extremely well. You can hit the turns at higher speeds than a normal Sportster. The lean angle is a lot better than a normal Sportster. I didn't get anywhere near the max lean angle on this bike. I just don't do that the first time I ride on a bike I haven't ridden on before. But yeah, super impressed, guys. It's a great bike to get out. I was doing, again, 80 miles an hour down the freeway, and the ride comfort was awesome. When I compare this to like another 1200cc bike, like a 48 or a 72, or if I compare it to like an Iron 883, the comfort on the freeway far exceeds those bikes. So if you're a guy that's going to get on the freeway, or do higher speeds for longer durations, this is a far superior Sportster to the other Sportsters out there. So if you have any questions, guys, comment below. I'm pretty good about answering any and all comments I get on the YouTube channel, so let me know. Thanks a lot. Again, this is Matt Laidlaw with Laidlaw's Harley-Davidson.